when you put out a product with an extremely controversial premise, yeah, there are going to be plenty of people criticizing you, but of course, there are developers and creators and just activists out there who cannot handle criticism. They want to always label it hatred and harassment, and that is exactly what is going on now with Take Us North. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, this illegal immigration simulator had faced a lot of controversy just a couple of weeks back, and these developers absolutely nuked their social medias. They deleted their X account, they wiped and took down their webpage. It really seemed like they were not going to handle the backlash that they faced all that well. And now they've come out with this massive post talking about how they've gone through hatred and a harassment campaign by right-wing extremists, which of course is extremely dangerous rhetoric to push. It is an extremely dangerous narrative that we have seen so many of these lunatics push over the past couple of years. I know that we all love to joke about people calling us bigots and racists and sexists, but they're doing that to try to demonize us, and so that we become an easy target. And with us mocking them because of that, it hasn't really worked out the way that they've wanted, but it is still dangerous nonetheless. And to go out and call your critics right-wing extremists is definitely not a way that you are going to gain support. That's for sure. Now, if you do not remember Take Us North, it's an illegal immigration game, and I had talked about it. Those videos will be linked down below, but they have ties to a lot of different really shady entities in the industry. Of course, Wings Interactive, Sweet Baby Inc., Clever Endeavor Games, and even as far as the United Nations. Now, this game did not receive a lot of support online. The Anima Interactive YouTube channel fared no better with just 61 subscribers, and without Microsoft Wings and the festival endorsements, the game would have likely gone unnoticed, but they actually got a really big panel at Gamescom. Asmongold reacted to it, and then Gamescom actually removed that speech or that page, and you had to be like a developer logged into a specific account to be able to view it. And it just seems that they did not expect this amount of backlash. And it's like Sweet Baby Inc., for example. Kim Belair has said that they want to be able to operate in the shadows, and it seems that that was the same exact case here. They wanted to be able to promote it to other like-minded activists at Gamescom, but they really didn't want people that are potential customers to really find out about it, because they know that it is an extremely controversial game when really these people aren't trying to create good, high-quality entertainment. They are using video games as a vessel to push propaganda. But now they've put out this massive post talking about how they're replacing fear with empathy. So it's a statement from the Take Us North creative director, Carla Reyes. We are currently in the midst of Hispanic Heritage Month, a time typically marked by vibrant festivals and cultural celebrations. But this year, some of that joy is muted. Why? Following a recent Supreme Court ruling, many Hispanic heritage gatherings across the U.S. have been canceled as fears over immigration enforcement and safety concerns arise. Now, I have said this before, and I will say it again. I, like most people in this country, am perfectly fine with individuals from all across the globe wanting to come here and become an American. That is perfectly fine. The problem is when you do not want to go through the process and you do not want to get the proper papers and you want to skip the steps that we have in place. And this is a take I think most Americans have. And the reason why I'm establishing that fact here is because these people want to paint us as close-minded, disgusting bigots who don't want anybody who isn't like some cis white man coming into our country. That's a terrible take, and that's not the take most Americans have. But they want to paint it that way because they want you to feel like you are a terrible person, like you need to check your privilege. It says, though, I've come to know these shadows well. In late August, Anima Interactive and I became targets of a viral online harassment campaign. Whenever a group like this faces a little bit of pushback, they instantly label it a viral online harassment campaign because it worked during Gamergate 1. It worked for the Anita Sarkeesians and the Brianna Woos and the Zoe Quinn. So now every single group tries this. Collective Shout tried it. Sweet Baby Inc. tried it. Anima Interactive here is trying it. And any time we criticize these people, they shouldn't instantly go to that, but they are so deeply entrenched in their victimhood ideology that, of course, society normalizes that they cannot see that what they are doing is a problem. It's why I will not support these people. It is why I will not say, oh my gosh, we need to be nicer to these people. Now, I'm not going to sit here and, of course, say that harassment is good because it's not. If you are sending these people death threats or harassing them legitimately, that's not okay. But the problem is that whenever we say your game looks fucking stupid, they consider that harassment. Whenever we post a clown emote on their posts, if more than, 5 people do that, it's a viral online harassment campaign. We have platforms, you have platforms, you can promote what you want, but that doesn't mean that we can't criticize your opinion. After giving a presentation at Gamescom, the world's largest video game convention, a prominent streamer with a large right-wing following broadcast my talk to his audience, reaching millions of views. They, of course, are talking about Asmongold, which, by the way, of course, Asmongold has a pretty diverse audience. Asmongold is not just some hard right-leaning streamer. He actually has a lot of very neutral takes. He is not somebody who just pushes one political viewpoint for the sake of online clicks. But of course, they don't actually know anything about Asmongold. They just want to paint him and his following as, insane and disgusting and violent. It says this escalated into direct personal attacks and doxing attempts, forcing us to minimize our online presence to protect our safety and security. Now, I have not seen any private information that's gone public regarding any of the individuals on this team. But if you have something like a LinkedIn and you have your real name there and you have jobs you've previously worked there and then people screenshot that, that is not a doxing attempt. That is something you decided to put on social media and you decided to show to the world. Now, I do not know how far these people claimed to have gone. Of course, do not dox anybody, but at the same time, we are talking about people who always want to push the view that they are victims and you need to support them or else you're a bigot. So I'm not going to instantly believe them. We're just at that point where these people want us dead. And so I'm not going to come out and instantly defend them without any sort of proof of actual harassment. They go on to talk about how at the nexus of the harassment campaign is their project Take Us North, an interactive narrative that immerses its audience into the perilous, poignant journeys of migrants and asylum seekers crossing the US-Mexico border. Now, of course, this game is allowed to exist. I would never say that they should not be making this game, but at the same time, it's not a game that I want to support. It's not a game that most people are going to want to support. It's a game with a pretty ridiculous premise. There are plenty of asylum seeker stories that you could tell that would probably be more interesting material for a game, but instead this is what you choose, and it's just, again, not something I'm personally interested in playing. Maybe there's a couple people out there who are, but haven't seen them talk about it on social media, that's for sure. They say, as a first-generation immigrant from Guatemala, migration is not an abstract political issue for me. It's a personal reality that has shaped my family and much of my community. I know there's more to the story than the reductive polarization that dominates our public discourse, and that's one of the primary motivations behind developing Take Us North. See, this is the major problem I have. They are not trying to gain a place within the video game industry because of their talent. They're trying to based on their checklist. the DEI checklist, right? This person is saying the reason why I made this game and why it's so important to me is because I'm a first generation immigrant from Guatemala. They're not talking about how they are a passionate game developer, how they love to be able to tell stories, and how they're able to connect people across the world, and how they put so much time and effort into this game, and they're so passionate about it. They don't even really bring up the game at all whatsoever for the sake of it being a game. They're just using their identity as a shield. They are saying that people are being a little bit mean to them, and that's why they're like so bothered by this like feedback or criticism, or as they say, harassment. They, of course, bring up the US presidential election and how they interviewed a couple in Mexico, and their story was a harrowing echo of thousands of others. So they just want to be an activist, and that's fine, but don't pretend to be a game developer and say you want to make games when you don't want to. You couldn't make it at a mainstream political outlet like MSNBC. They wouldn't send you off into the world to do interviews, and so what you're really doing is you're just using video games as a vessel to push propaganda, and that sucks. That's why a lot of people don't like what you're doing. They say in a climate with increasing anxiety, replacing fear and anger with empathy and understanding is the most essential work we can do. It's therefore important to address some misconceptions and elaborate on the background and intentions of it. Why is Take Us North a video game? The word game may seem inappropriate for a project centered around migration, but games have evolved far beyond traditional stereotypes and can serve as strong drivers of community and connection. No, the word game is perfectly appropriate because that is the medium that you are trying to make. Why is it you have to reinvent terms and stop using terms that people expect you to use? Video games don't just tell stories, they ask you to hold their weight. I believe they're one of the greatest vehicles for empathy. Sure, guys, that's what they care about. One of the fundamental design principles is to avoid abstracting the player from the emotional impact of migration. This requires a profound commitment to sensitivity, ensuring we can convey some difficult truths without being gratuitous. They talk about how it does not condone or glorify human trafficking. Firstly, it's important to distinguish between trafficking and smuggling. So, yeah, guys, they're not talking about trafficking, they're talking about smuggling. Human trafficking involves force, fraud, and coercion for exploitation, a heinous crime that our development team and project denounce. Human smuggling, on the other hand, is the facilitation of passage for a fee, a consensual transaction. So they acknowledge and condemn the dark sides of migration across the US-Mexico border. You know, if you have to come out and give a 50-mile long explanation as to why your game should exist, maybe you should rethink it. They even actually address if it's propaganda, and they say propaganda takes an easy path to a conclusion and makes sweeping statements on morality. In contrast, Take Us North embraces complexity rather than reducing it. The project explores moral ambiguity and provokes difficult questions rather than providing simple answers. This is storytelling as inquiry, not indoctrination. Surely, guys, that is it. The campaign against Take Us North is not an isolated incident. It's a symptom of a rising climate of fear and censorship that threatens the soul of a free society. So if you're so worried about something like censorship, why haven't you talked about it going on in the video game industry very, very intensely for over a decade now? That's right, because you don't actually care about video games, and you don't actually care about censorship. You just care about censorship when it could potentially happen to you. And again, I don't want these people censored. I don't want this game deleted from the face of the internet. They are allowed to put it out. They are allowed to create what they want. And of course, we are allowed to withhold our money. And if this is really the statement that they thought was going to like be extremely good, I don't know. I don't know if they just rushed this out because they figured, oh, it's time we finally say something about this. But it really comes across as poor us, we are victims. And if they hadn't started off with talking about how they are targets of a viral harassment campaign, and they deleted basically the first half of this, and then they only answered the questions about about, oh, the Gamescom presentation was misinterpreted, it doesn't condone or glorify human trafficking, and it's not propaganda, and we just want people to be able to create the art they want. My view on this might be slightly different, but because they come out and they say, oh, people are harassing us and people are painting us as the villains when we aren't, you're the villains, yeah, you're not going to get much support from me. I'm not going to sit here and pat you on the back, but they might have had a half decent statement if they didn't basically call us all ists and phobes. So yeah, now they have come out and they have made this statement. And I can't say that I'm particularly shocked that now they're trying to damage control after facing major backlash, but just know, if you criticize these developers, you're part of this right-wing extremist harassment campaign. But that's all that I really had to discuss. If you enjoyed this and found it important and informative, make sure to give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.